What's going on, you guys? My name's Ty Knots and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns. 5 shocking inmate reactions to their sentences. Number 5. In October of 2016, a man by the name of Jaleel Smith Riley entered a courtroom to receive his sentencing for shooting a 22-year-old woman back in 2013, as well as injuring her boyfriend. Jaleel had initially admitted to the shooting and pleaded guilty. However, once he realized that he was going to be sent to prison for life, he changed his tone and begged the judge to allow him to change his plea, a request which was denied. Take a look at Jaleel's reaction as he received his sentence.
Jaleel Smith Riley admitting to the crime. He confessed, pleaded guilty, then tried to drop that plea today. Judge Carl Skubicki did not let that happen. Smith Riley was sentenced after families gave statements, his family asking for mercy, her family asking for a life sentence.
He took her from me. She was beautiful. Her beauty was not just skin deep. She had a beautiful heart, mind, and soul. She was a little sister, a big sister, a niece, aunt, cousin, granddaughter, and my daughter.
The judge sentenced Smith Riley to life in prison without parole for Brooks' murder, and more time after that for shooting Martin, and still more time for using a gun. Smith Riley collapsed to the floor.
The Ohio Department of Corrections, mandatory and consecutive underlying offenses, all those counts are consecutive each other. Colgan credit for time served amount of 349 days.
The families say this was the first step toward healing. At 5:30 on Local 12, we're going to have more on what was said in court and an interview with Aaron, who still has dreams, even though he lives with an injury from that.
Number 4. Daniel Holtzclaw is a former Oklahoma police officer who was convicted of sexual assault, battery, and sodomy, among other things, back in 2015. These acts were performed against 8 different women, accounting for 18 different charges in total. It was revealed in court that Daniel had used his position as an officer to dig up details on the victims' lives, then used this information to coerce them into performing sexual acts for him. It was in January of 2016 that Daniel was found guilty and sentenced to 263 years in prison. When given his sentencing, Daniel became overrun with emotion and began sobbing as he was escorted from the courtroom.
Defendant is guilty of the crime of sexual battery and set punishment at 8 years. Count 2, procuring lewd exhibition. Not guilty of the crime of procuring lewd exhibition. Count 3, burglary in the first degree. Defendant is not guilty of the crime of burglary in the first degree, nor lesser included. Count 4, procuring lewd exhibition. Defendant is guilty of the crime of procuring lewd exhibition, and punishment is set at 5 years. Count 5, procuring lewd exhibition. Defendant is guilty of the crime of procuring. Count 31, rape in the second degree by instrumentation. Defendant is guilty of the crime of rape in the second degree, and punishment is set at 12 years. Count 32, rape in the first degree. Defendant is guilty. Mr. Holtzclaw, this jury finds you guilty of the various counts. You will be remanded to the custody of the Oklahoma County Sheriff for formal sentencing set January 21st, 2016 at 10 o'clock a.m. All right, you have a seat. The custody of the sheriff. You're excused.
Number 3. In August of 2016, a man from Ohio named Jason Behnke left from a 3-story courtroom after being sentenced to 13 years in prison. He was sentenced for felony assault and attempted murder after shooting a man in the face just a month prior. Authorities conducted a very brief investigation into Jason's jump, though the case was pretty cut and dry.
Moments after learning his fate, a 13-year prison sentence, Jason Behnke got away from the sheriff's deputy escorting him to the elevator and leapt to his death after jumping over the railing on the 3rd floor of the Jefferson County Courthouse. The fall about 100 feet. Jefferson County Sheriff Fred Abdallah says that Behnkewitz's hands were shackled, though his ankles were not due to issues with swelling.
If he did have them on, there's enough movement in them that he could have still made it to the railing and jumped over.
Moments after the jump, emergency crews were on scene. Later, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation arrived to collect evidence, and because a sheriff's deputy was involved, the Steubenville Police Department is handling the investigation along with the Attorney General's office. Going forward, Jefferson County officials say they will take a close look at security.
Oh, I think we're going to look at everything. You know, it's a terrible day for this to have happened, and I think that we will look at everything we can to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again.
Number 2. A man by the name of Giulio Hoskins was given a 50 to 100-year prison sentence back in January of 2014. The sentencing came after Jaleel was found guilty of taking the life of a young mother, then dumping her body in a dumpster. His verdict came after a supposedly heartfelt apology which he issued to the victim's family, stating that he loved the woman and that taking her life was not his intention. Though, take a look at his reaction to his sentencing just moments later.
And that was how the sentencing ended today, with Hoskins being rushed out of the room and both families erupting in yelling and screaming. We were the first to tell you last month when Hoskins pleaded guilty right in the middle of his murder trial. You may remember Mays, a mother of 5, went missing last March. Her body was never found. Hoskins admitted he tossed her body in a dumpster. Today in court, before that outburst, Mays' mother and aunt had their chance to confront her killer.
You tell me how I explain what happened to their mom.
First of all, I want you to stand there and look at me and quit standing there looking at the ceiling like a little coward. You know, I'm going to face you and I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel.
Number 1. 2 men from Chattanooga were convicted of entering a man's home, gunning him down, and robbing him. While the case was pretty self-solving, they were sent to trial in 2014, where they seemed to be strangely shocked by receiving life sentences in prison. Both of the 2 men broke out into profane and at times violent outbursts, causing the courtroom to fall into disarray. Take a look at a clip.
Chaos, disruptions, and threats take over a Hamilton County courtroom. Good evening.
Supporters of the 2 men convicted barely able to hold themselves up, and the deputies forced to use taser guns, demanding other loved ones leave the courthouse. Just minutes before, inside the courtroom, the jury hands down a guilty verdict against Roderick Bates and Emmett Jones, now convicted in the death of Reginald Clark. Jones and Bates reacted immediately to the verdict.
This some bull. This some bull, man. This some bull. Y'all know this some bull, man. Y'all know this some bull, man.
Family and friends of the victim remained quiet. They were clearly outnumbered in the audience. Meanwhile, Bates accused the all-white jury of racism, and the judge hit Jones with an extra contempt charge based on his behavior.
All these white folks on our jury, man. Y'all know this some bull, man. Him wait to tell you them all racist.
Judge Stillman on the bench did what he could to restore order.
Y'all can tell you with me. Y'all can tell you with me.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.